Hello, welcome to The Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and I'm lucky enough to be joined by the Twitch chat as we have just reviewed or about to review this massive Skaven update from Games Workshop on how Skaven are going to play in Age of Sigmar 4. And I want to say, straight off the bat, there's some incredibly exciting mechanic reveals in this article, which genuinely is going to have an effect on all different armies, and I'm really excited about it. So let's go and look at all the information. And before I do anything else, I want to thank everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon, who we have a very active and probably pretty happy Discord, which you can join if you want to sign up to Patreon. Okay, so let's talk about the battle traits for Skaven. In fact, actually, someone did say on the last video, we should quickly talk about the lore. What are Skaven? Well, if you're new to Age of Sigmar, Skaven are rat men who do live in their own city in a kind of semi-alternate dimension to where the rest of the guys live, although they also live in their own also semi-different dimensions, or realms as they're known, which are connected via a series of pathways and realm gates, and the rat men have been digging through the material between the dimensions and realms. That's what they've been doing. And now, at the start of Age of Sigmar 4, they have emerged, ready to spring chaos. There are a load of different clans, importantly, and they are going to get us rules for many of those clans, which is fun. Okay, so let's go look at the battle traits. So again, if you are new to Age of Sigmar 4, battle trait is if you're playing the Skaven army, all of these rules are going to apply to your Skaven army. After you have your battle traits, the next thing you're going to choose between your different battle formations. Each army in Age of Sigmar 4, when it's released in indexes, is going to have 4 different battle formations. It's also going to have 3 different kind of traits that you're going to be able to give to heroes and 3 different artifacts, which is quite fun. So we have covered most of these in our previous video about Skaven already. There isn't loads of new information, but the stuff, we're going to recover it again, but go watch that other video because there is more war scrolls in the other video as well, which you can find on YouTube. So what do we have? First one, and most importantly, multiple units in your Skaven army can be deployed in reserve or off-board, or specifically in the lurking Vermin tide in the tunnels below. And later on, thanks to Gnawhole ambush, which you do in your movement phase, you are going to be able to bring those units from reserve and set them within 6 inches of a friendly Gnawhole and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. And this brings me to part 1 of my favorite thing about the new Skaven rules, and that is Gnawholes, or the Nussies, as they've been affectionately nicknamed by the Twitch chat. So a Gnawhole is a set of 3 pieces of terrain that you can buy from Games Workshop, and they are to represent the tunnels that are being dug through the different realms to specifically this battlefield. So you have the ability, if there are less than 3 Gnawholes on the board, to summon one at the start of each battle round. And the restrictions are they need to be more than 9 inches from all enemy units, more than 1 inch from all friendly units, and more than 3 inches from all objectives and other terrain features. Because this is the start of the battle round, and because Age of Sigmar works with a priority roll, where you roll to determine who goes first in that turn, there's going to be some incredibly fun and dynamic tabletop gameplay elements where the battle round is going to start. You are going to bring on a Gnawhole. Then the decision on where and who is taking the turn is going to come into play with the ability of a Gnawhole to be deployed, especially when there are units in reserve that can come out of a Gnawhole, or, as we look at it in a moment, the ability to bring back dead units from a Gnawhole. It's really evocative, and the idea of these pieces of terrain popping up all over the board, and the fact that they key into my second favorite thing, which we've already covered before, but Gnawholes and many pieces of faction terrain, as well as endless spells, have a health value as well as a save. So we're going to go talk about that now. A Gnawhole has got 6 health, a 4-up armor save on it, which is, not that survivable, to be honest. And therefore, you, as either the opposing player or even as the Skaven player, are going to try and protect your Gnawhole while your opponent's going to try to defeat the Gnawhole. And that adds another fun piece of gameplay to Age of Sigmar 4, making it much more dynamic and much more interesting on the tabletop. So I quite like that. I think that's actually very engaging and very fun. We talked about this already, but we'll talk about it again in this video. The volatile ground effect just means that if you move over it, then potentially any enemy unit that moves over it is going to take D3 mortal damage on a 2-up. It's only enemy units, though. Then you have the most important thing is that with one command, you're able to use the Endless Vermintide command ability. And what that does is it allows you to bring back a infantry unit, a Skaven infantry unit that's not a hero, and bring them wholly within 6 inches of a friendly Gnawhole and more than 3 inches from all enemy units. And that's done at the end of your turn. There's 2 amazing things to say about this. Number 1, it's more than 3 inches from all enemy units. So you don't have to be outside of 9 inches, so it's going to be easier to do. Also, going into the next turn, potentially either a counter charge or just a normal charge, depending on turn priority, is going to make this, again, a really interesting choice to use and engage with. But here where it gets super exciting, if you remember our Stormcast Eternals review yesterday, we saw that Krondis has got the ability to roar at an enemy unit or at a unit it's in combat with, and then on a 3-up, not let it use any command abilities until the end of the turn. Guess what? We're pretty certain, although maybe it needs some clarity, you're going to be able to use Krondis, and you're going to be able to roar at a Nussie and make it so no units can come out of it. And I got to say, that's really fun. That's really engaging that you've got these kind of counterplay to these things. Then you have the Tunnels Through Reality ability, and if you're able to put more Gnawholes on the board, you're going to be able to teleport units between them. So that's your kind of your terrain pack, but it does feel like that they've brought an incredibly thematic set of rules to how you're going to use them. And I personally really like that. So if you are playing Skaven, make sure you go pick those up. The other thing that you probably always need to pick up, and I'm trying to express this a lot in all the videos, is if you're playing Age of Sigmar 4, then having endless spells or having your terrain pieces are mandatory. They're, as you can see, hard baked into how your army works. Having your endless spells is also pretty much mandatory. And the reason for that is because they are free, points-wise, to use, and you also get to just electively, you don't need to elect to choose to have the manifestation law for endless spells. Instead, it's just something you get for free. So when you build your army, you're going to put your units into regiments. You're then going to choose some heroic traits and some artifacts. But also, you're going to choose a spell law for your whole army and also a manifestation law or a Krunspine Incarnate. So those are, in effect, if you're looking to play a game with as many resources as you can get, mandatory. So, raid your local gaming stores to try and get yourself your endless spells, or obviously kit bash them if you can. Right, okay, so manifestation law, like I said, a wizard needs to cast a spell to summon an endless spell. Then you drop them on the board, and that's how it works. And for the Warp Lightning Vortex, the one that we've seen featured in the article, it's cast on a 7, which is pretty low, and you set it up within 18 inches, but only one of the 3 pieces that make up the spell. The other 2 pieces need to be within 7 inches of each other and the original piece you set up. This gives it incredibly big range of 25 inches, and the effects that it uses are within 6 inches, so that means it's got a total of 31-inch range. But this used to be a problem in Age of Sigmar, and it used to be really detrimental because getting rid of it was really hard, and the spells were with long range like this were a real problem. But we've got this other massive change in Age of Sigmar 4, which I really love. Let's call this thing I love number 3. In that Warp Lightning Vortexes and all endless spells have a health value and a save value. So you can just kill them. So you do not need to stress about having to dispel them or unbind them or any of those other things. You can just send a bunch of lads over to beat up a spell. And we've already seen yesterday with the Stormcast Eternals units that have anti-manifestation rules baked in, and that's really fun. So I love that. Okay, so the Warp Lightning Vortex, what does it do? Like we said, it's got those, like a triangle formation 7 inches apart, and it affects every unit within 6 inches, which is an absolutely massive 19-inch effect range. The first one is done in any hero phase, and then after the first turn where it's been set up, you choose any enemy units within 6 inches. On a 4+, they take D3 mortal damage. So if in my turn I cast it, then in your turn, in your hero phase, it's going to proc at that point. So it means you can't just do this kind of first turn blammo with this endless spell, and that's a really nice change. That means it's not going to be too obnoxious. but it is still going to be very strong, especially because it's free. Then you have the Warp Vortex passive ability, where you subtract 2 from run rolls and charge rolls for enemy units that are within 6 inches of this manifestation, and in addition, if an enemy unit passes through them, they take D3 mortal damage. So now you can see a situation where you use a piece of terrain and also an endless spell to set up this kind of no man's land where if the enemy runs through them, they're going to start taking D3 mortal damage, which is interesting. The opponent can also charge them and kill them, but it means they're not charging and killing your precious little rats. And we love that, okay? So that's fun, and I think that's really cool. So if you are building a Skaven army, you choose different battle formations, and quite excitingly, they've shown off what we get for Clan Molder, which is quite cool. They have also said that there will be one for our Pestilence family, for our Scryer family, and our Verminous family. So pretty fun, in my opinion, that they're all going to get them. So the one that you get if you're running Molder, which are kind of the Frankenstein rats, if you don't know, the different clans. Frankenstein rats are Clan Molder, which is why the rat ogres are featured here. You have a special rule called prized creations, which can be done once per turn across the whole army in your hero phase. So every time you do your hero phase, and what you do is you pick 3 friendly non-hero Molder units to be the target. So we're thinking rat ogres, but there will be other non-Molder ones as well. And what you do is you roll the dice for each one of those. On a 1 to 2, they take D3 mortal damage, which kind of makes sense because you've created an abomination. On a 3 to 4, you add 1 to the attacks characteristic of that unit. And obviously that's going to work really well the more models you have in a unit. It's not going to work great on a Hell Pit abomination because it's just +1 attack, but it is going to work really, really well when you have like 6 rat ogres because it's +1 attack on all of them. And then finally, on a 5 to 6, you get a 5-up ward save for the unit and +1 attack to their attacks characteristic. And you get to roll this 3 times. So that's quite fun. And I think people are going to really enjoy rolling on that. It means also that it's very Skaven in that it's not very reliable. And I think Skaven fans will be really excited about that. And non-Skaven fans will be like, of course you didn't. Every time they take D3 mortal damage, the non-Skaven player will be like, that's why I don't play Skaven. That sounds insane. But the Skaven player is going to really enjoy rolling it and laughing their ass off. So there we go. So that's what you get for these guys. And therefore, they then showed off our next war scroll, which is the Rat Ogres. So we'll talk about those now. They are a unit of 3 with 4 health each, so 12 health across the unit. With a 5-up save, they move 6 inches. Now, the unit of 3, one of the models in unit 3 or 2 of the models in unit of 6 can take a warp fire gun. And the reason I say a unit of 6, in Age of Sigmar 4, you can always reinforce a unit, which means take the size of the unit and add the same unit again. So unit of 5 plus another 5 for a unit of 10. You can't double reinforce them, so you couldn't have a 15, and instead you can have a maximum unit of 10. Many units can't be reinforced, like unique units or monsters as an example, but that's what I'm talking about when I talk about reinforcements. So the Warpfire gun is 10 inches, 2d6 attacks, hits on a 2, but wounds on a 4, is Rend 2 and damage 1, and excitingly shoots into combat. And you get the Warpfire gun in addition to having the claws, blades, and fangs on the model as well. So it does mean when you have a unit of 6, probably the last 2 models that you're going to remove are going to be the Warpfire guns because you just get all these extra damage as well. In combat, they're 5 attacks each, 4s and 3s, Rend 1, damage 2. Excitingly, they have a special ability which you do in the combat phase, and you can do that in each combat phase, where you take D3 mortal damage, then add 1 to the attack characteristic of melee weapons. If we stack this with our ability to add +1 damage, +1 attacks from our battle formation ability, we've now got 7 attacks per Rat Ogre doing damage 2, and that's pretty brilliant. The next unit that they showed off was Lord Screech, Vermin King. Got some pretty cool backstory, just in case you don't know. The Council of 13, which was kind of the Skaven High Council, once all kind of got along once, and so the Great Horned Rat, the god, melded them together in like magic warp stuff, and then turned them into like this demonic monstrosity where 13 different leaders all coalesced into one body. That's Lord Screech, Vermin King's backstory. And because of that, he's got 13 health, which makes sense, with a 4-up armor save and a 5-up ward save because he's a demon. He's also a level 1 wizard, a monster, a hero, obviously. He's unique, so you can only ever take 1 in an army. He's also got a War Master. And while we don't know what a War Master does right now, still, pretty certain it means you're going to be able to use this in conjunction with your general to have more units in the regiment that this guy is going to be in, because a hero always leads a regiment. Okay, so in combat, the glaive of the Rat King has got 7 attacks, 3s and 2s, Ren 2, damage 3. And for every 6 or critical hito that he makes in combat, in combat, then you're going to get 2 hits. And therefore, especially when he's wounded on 2, you're going to be able to do really good there. All-out attack, so it's going to be 2s and 2s, Ren 2. That's a lot of damage. That's 21 damage. It's pretty good. He has a once-per-turn ability that you can do in the combat phase called Terrifying Monstrosity, and you pick an infantry unit, and on a 3+, the target cannot use commands for the rest of the turn. Also, you subtract an amount equal to the roll from the target's control score until the start of the next turn. Seeing as Screech is control value 5, that does mean he's going to be able to charge into a couple of different units and potentially reduce down the control value of a unit and then be able to outscore them because of his high control score, which is quite interesting. Also, not being able to use commands is pretty good, although most of the commands that we've seen aren't necessarily used in the combat phase at the moment. We don't know. We haven't seen enough. Maybe this will be really good. Maybe this will just be okay. We'll have to wait and see. His main ability is done in your hero phase, and it's called the 13-headed one. You pick one of the following effects to apply until the start of your next turn, and you cannot pick the same effect more than once per battle. This is actually pretty fun, because this does mean that you'll be able to use Screech Vermin King at the head of more of a mixed arms army. Some people are just going to build all Clan Pestilence, or some people are going to build all Clan Scryer. This guy is going to be really good to be able to use in a multi-clan army, which is really sweet. He has the Master of Dire Sorcery, where you add 1 to the casting rolls for Master Clan Wizards while they're wholly within 13 inches of this unit. You have the Commander of Vermin, where you add 1 to the charge rolls for friendly Verminous units wholly within 13. The Knower of the Warp Tech, where you add 1 to hit rolls for shooting attacks made by friendly Scry units while they're wholly within 13. Feels like that one is going to be used a lot. If all of your Scry units can get +1 to hit all at the same time, that's going to be a pretty devastating shooting phase. You've got Deliverer of the Weeping Blades, where you add 1 to the Ren characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly Eshing units while they're within 13 inches or wholly within 13 inches. And little sneaky thing here, we're all pretty certain there's going to be some new different Eshing units that are going to be released post the launch box. That's quite fun. You've got the Bringer of Plagues, where you can add 1 to chanting rolls for friendly Pestilence Priests while they're wholly within 3 inches of this unit. And again, that feels incredibly strong, especially if it's multiple different priests, because you're going to be able to stack up and, bank those manifest or those chanting points. And lastly, the Shape of Fleshcraft, where you heal D3 to each Molder unit holding 13. Seeing as we've already seen the warscroll for the Master Molder, and he's also able to do a lot of healing, and also the Hellpit Abomination, which also can do a lot of healing, that is a nice little addition. So it feels like if you're going to build a mixed arms army, this guy is really good. Lastly, as a wizard, cast 1 spell. He can cast a spell on the 7th called the Dreaded 13th spell. And that means you're going to roll 13 dice, and for each 5+, you'll inflict immortal damage onto a target unit, and then you can return 1 slain model to a friendly Clan Rats unit wholly within 13 inches of Screech. So you're going to be able to basically do mortal damage to them and turn those models into Clan Rats, which is quite fun. I think that's very cool, very flavorful, very exciting, and means you can paint a lot more Clan Rats. We've also seen the Warp Lightning Warscroll, which has got 8 health and a 4-up save, and it has got it's predominantly a war machine with a 20-inch shooting attack that does 2d6 shots that hits on a 4. Thanks to the passive Warp Lightning Blast, any hits mean that they're going to be a mortal damage, which is quite fun. Especially when we already know from Screech, we're going to be able to get +1 to hit. The average is 7, so it's about 3 or 4 mortal wounds. Taking multiple Warp Lightning Cannons could really stack up how much mortal damage you do. But if you'd like to roll more dice, they have a once per turn per army ability. Don't forget, we've seen this a lot across a lot of the different armies so far, in that if you take more than 1 Warp Lightning Cannon, only one of them is going to be able to benefit from this ability. So that is a way of reducing how much, quote-unquote, spam or repetitive unit choices that we see. What this does is if a unit, if the Warp Lightning Cannon is within combat range, which is 3 inches of a Scry hero, you add 6 dice to your attacks characteristic. So it's 2d6 plus 6. However, the negative is if you roll any 1s when you're making it a hit roll, then you'll suffer D3 mortal damage. So I think on average, you probably end up killing your own Warp Lightning Cannon by the second turn or after the second turn. However, and importantly, you don't have to do the more Warp Lightning ability. You could have a much more consistent shooting profile across multiple Warp Lightning Cannons using the Warp Lightning Blast. And then if on a turn you really need to drill home all of the damage, you pop your +1 to hit, you get your Scry hero near your Warp Lightning Cannon, and hopefully everything pops off. And that will be a lot of mortal damage, which I think is quite interesting. And that's everything from the Skaven faction reaction. Although actually not everything we've already seen, because I've already made a video already showcasing some more stuff. Like I've said, there's some stuff in there that I really, really like. And obviously when we see all of these war scrolls, we'll be doing an entire review video. And hopefully that will give you good insights on how to play the army, what combos to do together, and how to play those armies on the tabletop. Like I was going to say, Age of Sigmar 4 isn't out yet. We don't know what everything is. But it already seems like it's going to have a lot of interaction between terrain and endless spells and loads of different units. So let me know what you think in the comments below, because that's the only way I can really tell how you feel about these rules and these rules changes. That's why I stream and I do these things with everyone in the chat, so I really can get an idea of what everyone else thinks about what these units are like, if they're excited about them, and so I can only really find that out by you leaving comments. So please do, like and subscribe as well, and if you fancy joining our Patreon, then please do. Anyway, thanks for watching this video, and see you guys soon.